is like chassan classes 101. You know? So, the Nesiv Shalom starts out by quoting the pasuk in the Parsha. It says, "V'yavei Avram lispay l'Sarah." That Avram came to eulogize Sarah. Now we just have reached the episode where Sarah passed away. As Rashi explained, she passed away after she heard the news that Avram was going to slaughter their son. And that was too much for her. She had kalot nefesh and she passed away. And now Avram's coming to eulogize for Sarah. He gets Maras Machpelah, and he wants to eulogize for his wife. And what does Avraham, the first Jew, probably the greatest Jew, Mamish, what does Avram say to eulogize Sarah? So the Medrash Tanchuma says, you know what he used? Ishes chayil miyimta v'rachoik mipnei mimicha v'tach bo lehibayla v'sholom lo yechsor. That Ishes chayil actually was a flow that Avram came into when he was eulogizing his wife Sarah, who he loved so dearly. So says the Medrash Tanchuma, but the Slonim Rebbe asks some questions that doesn't really make sense. Because when the Medrash Tanchuma, as it goes through the Pirush of Eishes Chayil, it says, for example, about the pasuk Zama Masada V'tikachayu, that she deliberates and considers about buying a field, and she goes and buys it, showing apparently the prowess of the woman. That the Medrash Tanchuma says upon that, what field was she considering? Maras Machpelah. Sarah was going to deliberate whether she should buy Maras Machpelah. Avram only purchased Maras Machpelah after Sarah's passing. In addition to that, we can go further in the Tanchuma. The Tanchuma says in the pasuk, "Le'sira mi beisa mishalek ki chol beisa lav hashanim," as it also says in Eishes Chayil, that her house will not fear from sheleg, frost, which the Medrash Tanchuma says in that what is the frost? The frost is actually referring to Gehenna, purgatory. That her household will not fear of frost, ki chol beisa lav hashanim, because her whole house is wearing linen, and the Tanchuma darshans on that don't say they're wearing shanim, they're wearing shnayim. That all of her house has two. What are the two things that her house is wearing? They're wearing the os, the bris, the sign of Shabbos, and the sign of Milah. Those are the two things that her house wears, so therefore they don't have to fear from Gehenna. But again, the question is brought, how does this have to do with Sarah? How does this have to do with the Eishes Chayil? For that our kids are keeping Shabbos and they're getting a bris milah, still the correlation doesn't seem to make sense about how this is a proper eulogy for Avram's wife. So I want to read this next paragraph inside because it's mamish so deep. Fan Rebbe says it unlike anyone else could. What is the whole concept of an Eishes Chayil? We know that inherently the woman is the vessel. She's the receptacle, the makabel. Even though she is the makabel, though, all the bracha and all the shefa and all the incredible flow that comes into a house is b'schus the wife. She is the one that opens up all the channels for the flow. That, as it says in the Sifrei Kodesh, that all of the gashmis in all the ruchnis of the house is all totally on the Eishes Chayil. Therefore, she's the one that actually brings the shefa for the Shabbos and for the bris milah. The Shabbos and the kedusha of the house is all in her merit, and this is mamish the deepest line. And all the things that it says are b'schus Eishes Chayil, even if she herself doesn't actually do it, she has no physical part of it and no engagement in that aspect of the house needs. But this is also b'schus her, and also b'schus her hashpa that she brings into the home. And as it goes on to say even further, that in regard to when Avraham decided to take another wife for himself after the passing, right? So it says, of Yosef Avram v'yikach isha v'shma Keturah. And Avram increased the amount of wives that he had, and he took another one, and her name was Keturah. That we know Keturah was Hagar. But why does it say that Avram increased and took another wife? Sarah was already gone. But the Slonimer says that Mamish and Eshes Chayil is never gone. And the Eshes Chayil is always with us. And even Sarah that physically passed away from the world and Avram couldn't be with his love anymore. She was always there with him, always bringing down the bracha, always bringing down the hamshacha. He says, Dafka, we sing Eshes Chayil on Friday night. And Friday night we know is the Malchut. And the Malchut as well. It says about Shabbos, Kihim Mekora Bracha, that Shabbos is the source of all bracha. And that all the higher brachas and the lower brachas of all the worlds are dependent upon Shabbos, are dependent upon the woman. And actually, parenthetically, the Zohar on this week's Parsha, one of the Zohars, talks about why does this week's Parsha start with a very interesting phraseology to tell us how long Sarah lived. Me'ah shana v'esrim shana v'sheva shanim. 100 years and 20 years and 7 years, it seems like very strange terminology. So the Rabbi Yossi over there says in the Zohar that the reason why it says it like that is because Sarah is actually the shleimut of the Malchut. She is Malchus actualized in full completion. Now Malchus actualized in full completion is her being Makabel, all the spheres above her. So what is she Makabel? She Makabel is 100 years. 100 in Kabbalah always is identified with Keter. Because Keter is the 10th sphere working our way up. Again, Keter and Dat are interchangeable, so you don't have Das over here, you have Keter. So, and within each sphere, there's 10 spheres also. So Keter is the 100th step up from the Malchut. So she's 100 years, Keter b'shalem. And then 20 years, we know that, again, each of the spheres are comprised of 10. So the 20 is the Abba and the Ima, the Chesed and the Gevurah. And then the 7 is, we know, the 7 emotive spheres. Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, Nitzach, Yisrael, Malchus. And Sarah, she is 100 years, meaning her Keter was totally b'shalem. And she is 20 years, meaning her Chachma and her Bina had total shlemos. And she had 7 years, meaning her Zer Anpin and her Nukva were totally b'shalem. And she was the one that held the balance. She was the one that was Makabel from all the higher spheres to really give to her household. Kamavaneh v'Yeshua. Mamish, we praise Mama Sarah. And we all have to realize, for those that are married and those that have a woman in their lives, Baruch Hashem, it's really, really the biggest bracha. And although we see that she's the Makabel, she's actually the Mashpia b'koach. There's koach and pol, there's potential and actuality. Actually, in actuality, generally the man brings home the baba ganoush and he gives it to his wife. And then the wife stirs up the baba ganoush and makes a beautiful Shabbos meal with it. But b'koach, she's actually the one that gives to him. She's the one that opens up the gates for all the Shefa to come down into their lives for bracha to be. Amen. So guys, for those of us that have our Ishes Chayils in our life, may we mamish appreciate them and recognize how they bring so much bracha. And for those of us that it's very soon and coming and on the way, let's really open up to it and open up and not be afraid to dive in and take that step to connect with the other half, because all the bracha and all the Shefa is going to